What's up, guys? Welcome back. So now I'm going to talk about my first impressions of the changes that Hwoarang got in Season 3. I've only got a chance to play a little bit. I've been pretty busy, but I've had a lot of discussions with other Hwoarang players, and I've seen a few of Speedkick's opinions on the changes as well. So with all of that kind of together, I'm going to give my opinion on what I think the changes mean for Hwoarang. So I'm going to categorize these into three categories. It's going to be the good, the bad, and the neutral. And to kind of clarify what neutral means, it basically just means changes that I think won't have too much of an effect on Hwoarang's gameplay overall. Now, I'm not going to include every single change in this video for time purposes, so if I don't include a change, just assume that I would have put it in the neutral column, as in it's not that important at all. The ones that I will be including in the neutral column in this video are the ones that I think some players may misinterpret as good or bad, but in my opinion, they don't do really anything. Right, so with that being said, let's jump right into the neutral. So 1133 is a neutral, right? A neutral change. It does give a little like nose kind of stun here. I don't think anything's guaranteed really. But overall this move is still pretty bad. Like it comes off after 1-1. It's not guaranteed by any means. It's just really telegraphed, right? So using this move will definitely get you in a lot more trouble than it will do good for you. So overall that doesn't do much. Up forward 2. I think this is also a neutral change. They did buff the plus frames on it, but again, it's a really slow move. There's not really too much, there's not really much of a way that you can add it into your pressure game. If you do manage to get it off, it does give you a beefy +6. That's pretty cool. But in my opinion, I wouldn't really go for it too often. It's just too slow. Down forward 1. This got nerfed by 1 frame, so instead of being 0 on block, it's now -1 on block. Now that would be kind of bad. In some cases it will be kind of bad, because at the end of round, for example, if you're trying to kind of fake your opponent out to make them think you're going low and you're just kind of spamming down forward once to finish them off, it will have a bit of an effect with it being -1 now. But overall, this move is kind of has pushback on it anyway. So if you put him on block, has a little bit of pushback on it, so generally after you use it, you're not really going to want to be going in and attacking anyway. So the nerf to it doesn't really do too much. It's not really that bad. So I'll leave it in the neutral column for now. And the big new move Hwoarang has, down forward 1-3, is also in the neutral column. Now I thought about putting it in the bad column, honestly, because this move is pretty bad. But the neutral column is defined as something that doesn't have any change or effect on Hwoarang's gameplay, so I would just say don't use it, to be honest. On hit, it's okay if you can hit it. It gives you +6, and you can kind of do stuff from there. But on block, it's -2. And without going into the details too much, it just basically means that a 15 frame move can trade with your flamingo jab, which is a 13 frame move, since you're at -2. That means you can get launch punished for using this move. Launch punishable. It's not worth it. It does less damage than your 11 frame punish, and gives about the same amount of plus frames, and it puts you into a stance where you can't block. So I wouldn't use this move too much. There are a few certain circumstances where you could use it, but overall I would say try to steer clear of this move for the most part. And then he got a buff to his punch parry, which guarantees this move now, since it gives you a 13 frame free 13 frame. Again, this move is not really that good. Even on hit, it's decent on hit, but I'm going to leave that in the neutral column as well, the punch parry buff, just because you're not going to see much of an effect or much of a change by getting this for free now. Plus the punch parry isn't really used that much anyway. It's used a little bit, but yeah, I would say that's neutral. So that's all the neutral changes. Let's jump into the only bad change I think Hwoarang really had, and that's his back 1. Right, so this got nerfed from -13 to -14. On top of that, it lost its stun, or its knockdown on counter hit. So we're gonna set this counter hit here. It doesn't do anything on counter hit anymore. It's just like a normal hit. Right, so it's -14. So one thing you should note is that some characters have some pretty strong 14 frame punishes. A few examples would be Elisa, Brian, Law, even Steve when he's in rage mode, because he has a 14 frame rage drive launcher. Josie has a really beefy 14 frame punish. So these are some of the characters you're going to want to be really careful when you're using this move on them, because they can make it hurt when they block it, right? So I would still say overall this move is pretty decent. It gets you out of pressure, it's very evasive. You know, it's a great move to help you out a little bit, but I wouldn't spam it too much. I would try to steer away from it if you can, and just use it when you really need it, right? So I still think it's good, but use it more sparingly. Alright, so let's jump into the good changes. The first good change is Hwoarang's back 3. It got a range buff. Alright, so that's really good. That means for moves like Heihachi's 442, see if I can find the settings here. Set him to do 442. You can punish this a lot more consistently, especially at close ranges. Alright, so that's guaranteed at close range now. You can launch punish this now. On top of that, it helps with whiff punishing and even death fist punishing from Paul if it hits really close like this, or even kind of mid range for Paul. But yeah, overall this is a really good buff. It helps your punishing overall, your whiff and your block punishing. It's a great change, very strong change. The next good change I will mention is Hwoarang's back 4. Now not on hit. I didn't mean to make that hit. It's the same on hit. Gives a big beefy combo, good counter hit move. But on block now it's only -7 instead of -9, and you see it gives that pushback. See how it gets pushed back a little bit? So this will give you a little bit of distance, like I mentioned in my previous video about the changes, to sort of move around and evade whatever your opponent does to try to counterattack you after they block this, right? So it just leaves you a little bit of a better position on block. I think that's a pretty good change. It's underrated and underlooked. So yeah, definitely a good buff right there. Okay, up 3. I'm going to show you guys what up 3 is good for. They did buff the frame advantage on block. That doesn't matter because you're not going to want to be using this just out of nowhere. The good thing they did to this is that they buffed the hitbox. So they lowered the hitbox a little bit so that it can hit better in combos. So you can do stuff like this now, right, to get more beefy damage. Now that was on counter hit, but still it does about 6 more damage than the old staple, which was, actually this is still the staple by the way, but it does 6 more damage than this move right here, but it's only guaranteed at close range. Really, it's kind of a range dependent, so I wouldn't say this is really a staple. You might be able to get used to the range if you practice it enough, but you know, overall it just kind of helps with combos. It's a nice little change. I think it will help a little bit. It won't be too much of a buff, but it's just, you know, a nice little quality of life thing. Now the next good change would be his up 4. Now instead of being 0 on block, it's actually +3. Now that's good because now that means you can jab afterwards. Also the pushback isn't really that big. They did put a little bit of pushback on it apparently. It's not noticeable, so your jab will definitely reach, you know, still really good. So now your jab will trade with your opponent's jab if they block this. Whereas before, your opponent's jab would beat your jab if they block this. That's important because now you can kind of get out of flamingo stance with the jab and reset the game and, you know, go back to being safe where you can block again. Also, you know, just kind of gives you more options out of the stance. So that's overall a really good buff as well. I like that. Okay, so these are a bit underrated as well. Crouch dash 3 and left flamingo stance forward 3. I'm going to categorize them both the same because they both pretty much do the same thing in my opinion. Crouch dash 3, a mid kick that leaves you into flamingo stance. I can't crouch dash at all right now. Right, so it leaves you into flamingo stance. And it leaves you at +4 now instead of +3. Now this is great because now your jabs afterwards will beat your opponent's jabs. So instead of trading with your opponent's jabs like it used to, it will beat your opponent's jab and leave you at +7 if you hit them with your jab, right? Or +5 if they block your jab. Either way, you're left in a really good position after this move. And I think it will actually be pretty usable now, whereas before it was really not a good situation for you. So most Hwoarangs steered clear of this move quite a bit. Same thing for left flamingo stance forward 3. It leaves you at +4 now instead of +3. Puts you in the same situation pretty much, except it has a little more pushback than crouch dash 3. But overall, it's pretty much the same idea. So those are really good buffs, I think, and will really help Hwoarang to continue his pressure once he gets it started. Okay, so this one is I'm a little bit iffy on. I put it in the good column just because I want to be optimistic. But this is his right foot forward 3-4 forward that leads him into right flamingo stance like that now. So you can use this. That will beat out any option that's not a high crush if your opponent decides to attack. Also, this will beat out any move that's not a high crush if your opponent decides to attack. So those are pretty cool, but the bad thing is that if these are blocked, it puts you in a pretty bad situation. So you're going to have to kind of mix your opponent up a little bit, make them not want to attack after this, and then go for a risky mix-up. Overall, it does put you in a pretty risky situation, but I decided to put it in the good column because it starts with the mid. And that's a pretty, that's a really low hitting mid, which is good. So a mid that puts Hwoarang into flamingo stance, I'm going to try to be optimistic about it, but I don't really like the situation too much. So, we'll just say it's kind of good for now, and we'll see what happens with that move. Okay, we're down to the last two changes now. So the last two good changes. So right foot forward, 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 3. This is a great change in my opinion, although it's only really useful at the wall. So you don't really want to be doing this in the open because it has so much pushback. But at the wall, they can't get pushed back any further because the wall's right there, right? So this now, it can no longer be, it jails basically. So the high can no longer be ducked if they block the mid part. Also, if the mid part hits them, that's a free wall splat, right? Which leads to really big damage. Yeah, so I'm just going to do like kind of a staple combo here. That's pretty big damage for a mid startup. So yeah, like I said, if they block the mid, they can no longer duck the high. It leaves you at +3 at the wall and kind of gives you free reign to continue your pressure from there. Just beware that Hwoarang does not have any mid that's faster than 13 frames. So if they duck jab you, it will trade with any of your 13 frame or your 13 frame mid, right? So just be aware of that. But otherwise, I think that's a really good pressure move at the wall, and I have high hopes for it. It can definitely be used to kind of mix your opponent up a bit more and continue your pressure on the wall. Just make your opponent really uncomfortable, right? So I think that's a pretty good buff right there. And the final change I want to talk about is all of his plasma blades. That one already hit grounded, right? But they all hit grounded now. So every single one of them. That one and even that one, right? So from every back turn stance, every forward stance, all of his plasma blades hit grounded now. So that can lead to some pretty cool Oki options. So let's say you want to do something like this, like one of his staple combos, and you want to go for kind of a tech trap, right? Like that. It will still hit grounded now, whereas before that would have whiffed. So even if your opponent lays there and doesn't fall for the tech trap, it still will hit them grounded, which gives you a little bit of damage and still leaves you in a good situation. So that's great, but the best part about it is, I think, that it's guaranteed now after this grab. So that's guaranteed Oki now. So basically, your 2+4 back grab, it gives you 56 damage. It's a 56 damage throw now instead of just 40. Guaranteed. So that's a really strong change. I hope people can come up with some really cool, like, kind of jump over setups to hit grounded or to either launch them if they get up wrong. I have high hopes for that specifically, but I do like the grab with that being guaranteed afterwards now. So yeah, that was just kind of my quick, again, I try to keep these as short and quick as possible. I know that they're still kind of long, sorry about that. But this is my quick overview of the changes, sort of categorized. And I think that Hwoarang is going to be a bit more competitive this season. I think this will be his most competitive season. That's my prediction. So yeah, I have high hopes that we see him more in tournament. I have high hopes that, Hwoarang players can do a little bit better online as well. And overall, I'm pretty optimistic. So I appreciate you guys for watching. I hope this kind of gave you a little bit of insight to the changes, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.